Hello and welcome back. This time around I want to make a build guide or theory crafting for Olesyas Delight Cloth Belt. Compared to last time we did Arns Anguish. This belt, the main mechanics is Affliction Charge. Players have 8% more damage with ailments and 8% more effect of non-damaging ailments per Affliction Charge. And your maximum Affliction charges is equal to maximum Frenzy charges. So I thought about which ailments are the best, and I came to the conclusion it's Witch. For example, if you go with the shock route, you can achieve 1000% increased shock effect. You could theoretically apply a 76% shock, but you can achieve 60% with a cluster jewel node called Overshock, so it gets to a maximum of 60%. And I made a few different outlines. And this one grabs all of the shock nodes and frenzy charges, and it anoints savagery for the last frenzy charge. And I did not this belt because I think it doesn't work properly. And I had two ideas. One is to go with the 8% more per frenzy charge instead of affliction charge, and 8% more effect of non-damaging elements. And then I removed the frenzy effects with reduced attack speed, reduced cast speed, and less damage. But I'm not sure in which order the calculation applies. And I think if I have the less damage, then it applies at the end. It would be too big of a less multiplier or damage reduction compared to what it actually would be in game. And then I kind of compromised on just having 4% more damage with ailments per frenzy charge and 4% more effect of non-damaging ailments. And the ailments are Ignite, Chill, Freeze, Shock, Scorch, Brittle, and Zap. And then the non-damaging ones are Chill, Freeze, Shock, Scorch, Brittle, and Zap. And the damaging ones are Bleed, Poison, and Ignite. And I tried to make a build out of it that ideally applies the Shock and then some other damaging elements. If you look at the shock calculation, we have a 56% more multiplier if you use the belt, and mainly the gloves, Blasphemous Grasp, Assassin's Mitt, and you can grab a +1 frenzy charge really easily. I bought mine for 5C, and there were some with worse rolls for 2C, and for each elder item you have equipped, you get 8% increased effect of non-damaging ailments and 4% damage over time with ailments. And then you just equip as many elder items as you can or want, because you already overcap quite a lot with the shock. If I have only half of my shock effect, then I would still have the 6% shock while dealing lightning damage. And if I reduce the effect even more, while hitting mainly with cold, for example, I would still apply a 67% shock without having to deal any damage or beating a damage threshold, because the Elementalist Ascendancy has Shape of Storms, and if we scale the shock effect, then the 50% minimum shock applies up to the 60% with Overshock. And then for the Ignite damage, the belt doesn't work because the Radiant's Dawn heavy belt exists, and it has a 35% more multiplier because it applies the Ignite faster, and you can increase the effect with a catalyst, so the belt can't really compete unless you maybe apply two effects like Shock and Ignite. And for the bleeding ailment, there is Relentless Coil, and it's slightly better because of the life as well. And the only viable builds I found were poison builds, and some builds that don't apply Ignite, for example, that don't work, are Righteous Fire, Flame Wall, Scorching Ray. Then for Chaos it's Blight, and I think Essence Drain doesn't apply poison as well, it's just chaos damage over time. So ideally, if you want to scale with the belt, then you could go with like Armageddon Brand, Ignite Proliferation, that works okay, Blade Vortex Poison, then Eternity Shroud and Aberrath's Hooves, and Divine Ire works okay with the belt. Fireball is okay. Pestilence Strike doesn't work out too well. Radar Scorch Arrow works out okay, I think. And Viper Strike is also not too good, because Viper Strike builds can craft a really decent Elder-based belt instead. And I just copy pasted some builds from PoE with the highest damage and Everest Hooves, and with our belt it would get like 6% damage increase. Then Blade Vortex Poison would get a 40% damage increase. We get a 24% damage increase with this belt, but we would lose a lot of HP for this build. Then Fireball gains 10% damage from this belt, and Pestilence Strike would gain 4%. Scorch Arrow would gain 10%, but lose a lot of res and HP. And Viper Strike would gain 10% increased damage, but would lose a lot of HP. This build would lose 50% HP. And then I made different builds with all the possible ailments. And this one is just the shock bot with frenzy charges. And then we have a freeze and chill bot and maybe brittle. These are all of the code nodes. Then some fire damage and bow synergy and crit. These are all of the nodes. And if they're not really effective, you cut it out. Then these are all of the chaos damage and poison nodes. And they are for one hand, claws, daggers, and for bows. Those were the most effective ones, or the nearest ones. Then we have bleeding and damage over time, and ideally with a bow. And then I put a Lionel's Fall in different spots where I could interact with some other nodes. Then I tried to test if Ancestral Bond, where you can't deal damage with skills yourself, applies to the different elements. I wanted to apply ideally all 3 or more ailments, but with no damage, and see if that's a 0-second duration. And I wanted to test if the 25% more effect of lightning element, cold element, and fire is applying equally if your damage is like equally 1 damage in each element, or for simplicity's sake is 0 with the Ancestral Bond. You can get from like the Skin of the Loyal, and I wanted to balance it like with the Wise Oak and see if that applies, but I think it doesn't, because in the calculation, if I remove the Shock Nova and replace it with Fireball, then my chance to shock goes down to 750%. But on my tree I picked the Ancestral Bond, so I shouldn't really be able to deal damage because I don't link it with any totems. I grabbed all of the cold and lightning mods, non-damaging ailment, lightning, cold, frenzy, cold. And then I thought about getting rolling flames for fireball, and then boost the alternative elements like brittle, sap, and then I'm going through the different items. I thought about using a consuming dark, so I can apply the fire and poison effect, but I didn't use it yet. Then a CNS Chant for damage build, because if I use a bow, I can maybe apply some damage over time, poison, curses, shock. Then Flamesight could apply Scorch, and the alternated elements or Scorch, your elemental resistance are lowered, and you can get up to 30% and maybe be a damage support. And Scorch is the Ignite, so I thought about applying Ignite, Scorch, shocking the enemy, and then instead of freezing it, you apply Brittle, so you get a 50% chance to critically strike for all of your attacks, or the main damage carries effects. But then you would lose like some defenses, and you can swap it out with a different helmet. you get the Gale Sight for the Brittle effect, a 25% chance, but you can't freeze. Then Flame Sight for the Scorch. Then I thought about abusing the 3 dragons for some conversion with like Aberrath's Warhoofs, some Impulsor or Herald of Ice effects, but I'm not sure with the correct order of using it, and I don't have a jar slot open right now, so I can't really level 1 and test it, so I'm just sharing theory. And then we have the Crystal Vault, which boosts the effect of cold elements. Then Infernal Mantle for the fire to chaos conversion and poisoning. And Pulsar for the shock and explosions. Skin of the Lords with Ancestral Bond if you want to go 0 DPS, just supporting. And you can apply the 60% shock without dealing damage. Then the Blasphemer's Grasp, kind of important, but if you just scale the effects, you don't really need it. But it's one of the easiest sources to scale your ailments. Then Olga Mortis has a 25% chance to zap enemies in chilling areas. And then you could go like Arctic Breath, apply a chilling area, and then zap them for 25% chance. And you get 80% increased effect of non-damaging ailments. Then Doriani's Fist has increased lightning ailment effect. And Stormgrift's is for proliferating the shock, but only if you kill the enemy. Stormcharger are level 23 unique and very common. And if you want to go with the Blasphemer's Grasp, then you could probably get an Elder-based Plated Greaves and just chance and scour them yourself. If you want an Elder-based, should be really easy. And it has 20% increased effect of lightning elements. Then Aberrath's Hoofs for burning hoof prints. Ignite a nearby enemy on killing an ignited enemy and maybe do a chain reaction that way. Another idea is the Beacon of Madness. So you have igniting, chilling, and shocking conflux while affected by Glorious Madness. And you don't really need it, and it's not as reliable. Then some underused items are Legacy of Fury, the Maven boots, and you can combine the belt with the boots. And if you're in a group with a magic find setup, then these boots might mess up your group composition, but they have 40% increased effect of Scorch. But if you scale with the belt and the Blasphemer's Grasp, then you probably shouldn't have a problem reaching different caps, for example like the Scorch cap, which applies 30% reduced elements on the enemy. And the Zap one, by the way, is that the enemy deals 20% less damage, but I think in most cases people will still go with the shock, so I didn't use the helmet. And on the Amulet, you can get a craft for the increased effect of non-damaging elements. And another alternative is the Yoke of Suffering, where you get 5% increased damage for each type of ailment you have inflicted on them. And it could be reasonable to apply Ignite, Chill, Freeze, Shock, Scorch, and Brittle. So you have 6 ailments, and that's a 30% more multiplier, I believe. And you could even get a Poison up if you use like a Dark Fiend. Just some Elder-based items. Barrack's Grip might be interesting if you try to deal damage with this build. And Barrack's Respite is for the proliferation of the Shock and Ignite. Then Call of the Brotherhood if you want to do a conversion build or want to hit harder with the cold instead of lightning. Then Pyre if you want to hit harder with fire instead of cold. So you could apply a cold, then a fire, and then a poison effect. And if you combine it with Call of the Brotherhood and for example like Ili Hit, then you could go from lightning to cold to fire to poison. And the replica Malakai's Artifice would apply Secret of Suffering. And that would be cannot ignite, chill, freeze, or shock. And critical strikes inflict Scorch, Brittle, and Zapped. But then you would need to critical strike an enemy. Then I thought if you go a melee build, you can apply the bleeding and poison for ailments, and then there are the belts. I tried to mod a flask, but it didn't make it work. Then a cluster jewel with Overshock and Astonishing Affliction for the 60% shock cap. Then voices just to socket in some gems. And the Rolling Flames Cobalt Jewel has with 40 intelligence in radius. It applies that the fireball cannot ignite, but maybe with the Ascendancy you can still ignite with other stuff. And you have a 40% chance to inflict Scorch. So that's really good, because then you can apply the Ignite and Scorch. So you get one more element for the Yoke of Suffering for 5% more damage. Then we have a cluster for Deep Chill for increased effect of cold ailments if you don't hit the cap. And Linus 4 to test with the different clusters for bows. And you can get corruptions on jewels. So you get up to 7% increased effect of non-damaging elements. So you could theoretically just do a jewel stacker and with good or bad corruptions in most cases. If you would want to go with damage, then you could get a cluster like Eye of Storm and Storm Rider. So you get more cold damage and lightning damage if the enemy is affected by the other element. And you get increased effect of non-damaging ailments with critical strikes. And it also scales the ignite. Another thing is blowback gives fast ignites. Cooked Alive has a chance to ignite, and the enemy gets 10% reduced fire resistances that way. Then for the damage over time, poison and bleeding, there's Steady Torment. For the ignite and for the fire, there is Wrapped in Flame. So you have a 5% chance to cover the enemies in ash on hit while you are burning, so you would need Righteous Fire. And I thought about using Storm Secret, so I can hit myself and maybe pro-live something that way. And I thought about using the Winter Weave for the effect of chill on you is reversed, and then using the Fulcrum or another combination of the Auxion Crystal Belt and like Scold's Brittle to self-damage and a corruption which has physical damage taken as cold, and then you can hit yourself, and because of the agnostic 0 energy shield, and this belt which has chill effect on freeze duration on you is based on 100% of your energy shield and it's 0, so just taking 1 damage would apply like the maximum chill, and then you get 30% increased action speed. But if you're an Elementalist, you can get up to 40%, and you don't even need all of the percentage scaling of like 1000% increased chill effect, and so it doesn't really need to be that ascendancy. And for example, like the bleed and poison, you can get another ascendancy and probably hit the shock cap quite easily as well, but then you need to deal damage and can't go 0 DPS, I believe. It wasn't really a specific build guide, but maybe some other people that are better with theory crafting can confirm or deny some of the claims that I made and improve the build for the future. But I don't think for party play this role will replace any of the other important parts like the Mana Guardian, Aura Stacker, Curse Bot, Damage Dealer, Magic Find or Strength Stacker, because this build kind of needs to attack or apply animations, so it's probably not that helpful for the party play. But the build was dead for a few leagues already, and I thought mainly about implementing the new build and checking which build would make it viable and would be mostly the Elementalist. And I hope you or the community learned something out of this. And for the next project, I want to make a build with the Gravens Secret and see what happens at like 10 maximum power charges. So you would get like 120% of elemental damage taken as energy heal, and see if that heals really just the damage or if it overheals, for example. If you like this kind of content, then like this video, comment and subscribe, and consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/extremelylucky, and The PoE, the main one, is in the description, and so are my social links, like twitch.tv/franklyspeaking. And thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, bye bye.